Hey guys, my name is Teacher Grant, and this is going to be a video that I typically don't do. A video that is completely out of the ordinary, but I've been meaning to kind of share my journey, and it might answer a few of the questions that I get asked on a continuous basis. So let's go ahead and dive on into this and just get into it right now. So here we go. So in the States, I started subbing for after school programs and preschool programs. But before that, I was actually in ROP childcare. So it was like a double class that I was able to take in high school. So it started when I was in junior high, and I found a class called ROP Childcare, and that was my junior year. So that was the start of working with children, and I fell in love with it. I loved it. It was awesome. Did it also my senior year. Okay. It was great. I graduated, high school, and I found myself working for the school district, which had their after-school program, and also they were linked with the preschool programs they had as well. So I substituted for these programs, and I did that I think for over 6 years. It could have been longer. So between I found little gigs, working here and there, like other places. So I always had my experience through childcare and after school programs, and yeah. Even though the pay wasn't good, I always did everything I was asked. I went over and beyond and just did me. I just did what I loved doing. Alright? So I did everything in my power to satisfy them, and I went over and beyond. But again, came to that end. I got hired by the school district, and then unfortunately to get fired a year later, and they never gave me a reason. They never told me. It was really frustrating. It irritated me, and it was hurtful. It was a hurtful situation, because I didn't know why I was let go. The person who I sought the answer from, I regarded her as a friend, and that's, in my opinion, rule number one. It's like, and this is not to be completely discouraging, but my experience, just keep yourself, mind your business, and you don't necessarily need to make friends when you're working at a facility or a place, because at the end of the day, business is business, and your job is your job, and whatever position you are, you gotta do at the end of the day. And the irony of it is, the person who I regarded as a friend, the supervisor, I came through and I did things that she needed help with. There were situations that were dire, like she needed an immediate help. She needed that assistance. And I did it. I never questioned. I never asked why. I just did it. So, anyways, back to the part when I was fired. I was shocked. I was taken back because I did everything. I love my job. I love the kids I worked with. They were kind of like my own children, in a matter of speaking. I also worked at a small daycare. And the person I worked for, it's hard to explain, but I guess you can say she was difficult to work with. it's a, you know, I stayed late. I came early. I forfeited my lunch on multiple occasions and did things that were not part of my job duties. So, came to her rescue many times. She'd be sick, I'd take over and just do what she needed to be done. So, yeah, when it came for me to leave, it was peaceful, it was fine. She paid late, but I did get paid. Unfortunately, at the end of my tenure, at the end of my time working for that place, she had owed me 3 months, and I haven't received a penny. I got, I think, part of a paycheck, but that was about it. So, yeah. And although it's been over 10 years, I don't think I'll ever get any of that money back. I also worked for another daycare. Well, it was an after-school program, not a daycare. And I loved it too. Pay sucked, and I was traveling an hour a day, well, like round trip. So at the end of the day, I was making less money than I was making money because of the gas, right? So, call it a bad decision, but I was very passionate and I loved it. I, befriended the supervisor there. She'd vent to me. She'd tell me, how things were and how she felt about situations, and I would just have her back and say, things are fine, she's doing great, all that stuff. So, let me continue here. Fast forward a year later, I was still with that company. I was asked to go to a different school location, which I wasn't happy about, but it was what it was. It was their decision to make. I liked the team I was working with the year before, and it felt like the dream team. I liked everybody I was working for. And there was another teacher that was a head teacher. She was difficult, to say the least. Gave me attitude, shot me looks, could have been, it was hurtful. It was clear she didn't care much for me. At the time, males were not popular in childcare, after school programs, not as popular as they are now, because I've seen a lot of males in the field now, which is actually really cool. I tried to handle it professionally. I approached her politely, asked her for some positive communication, offered to resolve any issues that she may have had with me, and tried to reconcile anything I may have done wrong. She got defensive and reported me. Supervisors from the program, not even my the big supervisors, not the ones that were immediate in school, came hard on me. They belittled me, and I was called into their office. And my supposed friend, the immediate supervisor that was there, the one who I had befriended the year before, we would go out together, all of us, the staff, and do activities, They had all my stuff ready, so she was there. And they let me go. I was angry. I was pissed. I couldn't have been more upset at that time, but it was what it was. It was a tough experience, feeling unsupported and unfairly treated. The workplace dynamics can be challenging, especially when communication breaks down like it did in my situation. So if you've been through something like this, you're not alone. It's okay to get angry and disappointed, and that's just what it is. Okay? So, after losing my job in childcare, I found myself at a tough spot. Ended up working at Walmart, pushing carts, and dealing with annoying, difficult customers. if you've worked at Walmart, you know what I'm talking about. I didn't enjoy it. I did tech support, which just drove me crazy because of just stupid customers. That's just what it is. And despite that, I made an agreement, even with Walmart, to continue part-time when starting a full-time and the tech support job. You know, things seemed okay until I needed to change my schedule, and I informed my assistant manager. He told me that everything was good, that nothing else needed to be said, etc., etc. And then my immediate supervisor came back after personal reasons. She claimed that she saw no record, there was nothing said, and there was somewhat of a heated exchange where she tried to just argue in front of me, in front of a bunch of people, customers and the cashiers, right? I'm there to work, and she's just wasting my time. So, but at the end of the day, after our exchange, she concluded to just advise me just to have everything documented, cover my ass, cover my butt. So I left Walmart and moved to a new city. I found a new job at a preschool, but only after a month. I feel like I was set up to fail. I loved the job, but again, it was just like a brick being hit on top of my head, right? So, story of my life, right? And I'm gonna get to the questions that are kind of in your head now, right? So, let's talk about before I moved to China. So, my friend had reached out, right? Friend had reached out and said, hey, after all of this stuff that you're going through, why don't you move to China? My friend at the time had lived in China for 2 years then. And he's like, hey, why not move to China? I said, maybe. Because, we're influenced by the media, and our initial thought is, hell no, or no way, right? So, as I was contemplating the move, there are a lot of things to consider: the new environment, the language, the culture, everything. My friend had been in touch with the agent. The agent got a hold of me. She assured me that there'd be no issues. I'd be able to get a job and do what I love, blah, blah, blah. So I arrived there, so I took the leap, got all the paperwork, and I'm in China. Things did not go as planned, as it had been with my life, and things still don't go as planned today, Agency struggled to get me a job. School after school just kept turning me down. It was really disheartening and was not very motivating to me. Like, oh my gosh, am I in the right field? What's going on? What's wrong with me? What could be possibly going on? So being fired or advised to leave, it was, so it was my first rejection there. So at the same time, my friend was like, hey, and again, this is a friend I have known for years at the time. So we've known each other now for over 20 years. So at the time, it probably was over 15 years of knowing each other, because I moved to China in July 2014. So he had been teaching a private group of parents, and he asked if I could take over. And after being rejected, I'm like, are you thinking to myself, are you sure they're gonna really accept me? So I'm nervous as can be, and parents liked me, and I taught with them till I moved away. So I found 4 private groups of parents with no issues. They all wanted me to teach, right? So I went on site to their place and taught them English, from a book they wanted me to teach from. They loved me, wanted to hire me immediately. These parents, for the private classes, it was like a wake-up call. Parents appreciated me. Yet schools seemed indifferent, possibly due to my appearance, my mannerisms, or whatever it was that turned them away from me. They couldn't place me in the agency. So they said, you can go, but you'll have to find your own job. And I agreed. Or actually, they're like, we'll keep you, but we're going to pay you less. And I'm like, no. And I ended up finding another place, and I loved the new job. I loved the schools. There's 2 schools I was going to, but it was like a all-day thing. Like I'd work in the morning, I'd come back half day, and then I'd go back in the evening. So it was like a split shift, and I learned how it really was. These training schools that you went to, you'd work in the morning, break in the afternoon, and then come back in the evening. So it seemed good on paper, but if you are one that just likes to just do a straight 5 or straight 6 or 8, whatever, it wouldn't have been the job for you. But for those who would have enjoyed having like a split shift, it wouldn't have been for you. So I love the kids, and I'm sure they love me because they seemed really excited when I come to class. But it irritated me. There was last minute decisions, changes, no communication, acting as if everything is all hunky-dory, right? Really tested my patience, but I was mindful. I said, right, whatever you guys gotta do, you gotta do, right? So I worked there for about, it wasn't long. It was like 4 or 5 months, like less than it. Maybe 6 months, less than a year, because I wasn't with the agency for very long. Because again, they gave me an out. I think it was like a month of trying to place me, and they couldn't place me. And they did. There was one time that they drove me 3 hours to meet up with a school, potentially for them to hire me. It was a waste of time. It made no sense, and I was completely confused. So, I moved to Shenyang. Okay, let me back up here. So, the training school, they didn't want to give me a new contract. They didn't want to hire me. Again, blessing in disguise. I've been told that being told I could leave was like the best thing that could ever happen to me. And I moved to Shenyang. So I went from Changchun to Shenyang, Jillian Changchun to Shenyang. And I had a choice between 2 schools. There was like a kindergarten where I had weekends off, and then there was a training school. And what sold me, but it isn't what it is, it was the hours. Oh, you only will have this many hours, but it's teaching hours, never what it seems to be. So teaching hours are just when you're actually in the classroom teaching. So when you're in a classroom teaching are considered teaching hours. So, and I was working with them for a few months, and then they said wasn't welcome back to those schools. And they gave me just desk work. I said, okay, you can just work on curriculum. That is not what I came to China for. And they gave me an out as well. It's like, well, if you can find another job, we'll give you your letter, your last paycheck, etc. So I found a new job. So I joined the kindergarten where I pretty much worked there for 6 years. I love the parents. I love the kids. I even loved, I loved my co-teachers. Not the Well, Chinese teachers were good. I mean, they did what they did. They were paid crap. But some of them I enjoyed working with. You know, I was even technically the only legally hired teacher there. This is a lot about the school I worked for. So, work for them, right? And a significant moment came where the pandemic hit. So, the pandemic hit. So that sucked, and all the schools were shut down. It was unfortunate. I came upon this person who had a site that I went to. It was kind of like a mirror to an homage to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The person who had built it was trying to do something different. So that led me to a person who was able to give me leads to parents who wanted English classes for their children. So I started doing something I didn't think I would do. And please forgive me because this is not really pre-planned, it's roughly planned. But I did want to address that during my time in China, while I was working, as I mentioned before, I had private group classes. So while I was in Shenyang, I kept building my network of people who knew who I was. And they would say, oh, I got a friend who wants their kid to learn English, or I have a kid that I want him to have English classes and stuff like that. So I kept getting offer after offer. I had set my price and they would agree and I would teach them English. So I probably had a group of like 5 or 6, not group, but like 6 individual one-on-one classes on top of my kindergarten job. And this is all pre-pandemic. So I was building this network, every opportunity, befriending parents, befriending everything, doing what I can. So I'm building this network. So this is before I got to where I am now. And I'm still building a network. So, I have been building this, right? So, when I was with this platform, a person had connections with a ton of parents. So I started doing classes for free, like every week. They join, and I would do what I do, play games, read books, etc. So even twice a week at a time I was doing it. So, and it came to a point where parents were like, well, we really like you. We want you to ourselves. And I'm like, well, that might take some money. And they agreed. We came to a price agreement and I was able to get paid. Now, a key question I might get asked is, how was I paid? And that's the part where I had a trusted person who took payment, and then about every couple months they would just send me my money to my bank account in the States. I use Stripe. How do you use Stripe? YouTube it. I set it up long ago and I could not tell you how to do it now. This is all part of being in your own business, part of being independent. So, so I had my first group, and eventually it led me to other groups, kind of. I would say I stuck with that one group for a little bit of time. I don't remember having a second group quite yet. Now at this time, the pandemic situation, it was kind of like a back and forth. It was a love-hate relationship, right? So schools would be shut down, and then we go back. Everything will be great. Then they would shut down again. We go back. Everything would be great. Then we shut down again. So this was happening continuously for a good 2 years or so. 2 years. You know, there was about three, I want to say like 3 main shutdowns, and the last one did it for me. So, I hope you're with me so far, and I apologize for the long video. You can skip through it. Maybe YouTube will generate chapters. So in that platform that I was in, I continued to build networking with the parents there. And they even had their own app, Zalo app, right? So people who weren't a fan of that platform, we all rendezvoused on the app on Zalo. So we had a major group right there. So, and with everything opening and closing down, and the fact that nobody in the world could make a decision on what we're supposed to do, and I was still working at the kindergarten. Mind you, now, when I had these group classes and I was teaching for free, I had income, you know, so I had made I was doing it when I was working at the kindergarten, so I was not, teaching for free was not my full-time job, if that makes sense. So I was very fortunate to connect with many parents through the kindergarten, many parents through the platform, and it built to where I am now, and it's still building. To my knowledge, I think I had about 6 classes before moving back to the States. A couple one-on-ones, a couple group classes, etc. So we're gonna continue here. Lived with my brother and his family, who let me stay with them. I did my best to help out as I could, and everything worked out at the end. I enjoyed being there for my niece and nephew, supporting them every way I could. And at the time, I was still building my classes, so I was waking up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning to teach 1 or 2 classes independently, right? And I want to also say that I was not even working for any companies. This is all me. No agent was pulling students for me. It was all me. It was through referrals, you know, parents said, hey, talk to this parent, set up a time, blah, blah, blah. And yeah. So I was referred to in other groups. I had not, probably had about 2 or 3 groups, 3 one-on-ones. As I kept receiving requests, I had to create more classes. By the time I moved to Vietnam in 2024, which is just a few months ago, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I had about 15 classes per week. And that's including both group and one-on-one classes. Today, I feel like I should share more. 90% came through word of mouth. I mean, a lot came through word of mouth. And I had my own personal strategies that worked. You know, I connected with so many families, and I would see their videos. I would watch their videos on Facebook. I would comment on them. Let my presence be known. I became an indirect part of their adventure, their journey, their lives, and a matter of speaking, right? So I did what I believed in. I continue to build to this day. And even in the States, I still did my open class. I call it my free open class. You know, that I did every weekend. And I would get like 15 to 20 students. Did they all end up signing up for my VIP classes where I would get paid? No. I would say a very slim amount did. Maybe 3% did. You know, but I just wanted to be me. And I advise that if you're able to, do it. Do free classes. You know, but what should I do, Grant? What should I do? Do you. Do whatever you are setting your mind to. Do your niche. Do what makes you unique. Don't be me. Don't do what I do. Do what you want to do. Okay? You know, and so the big questions. How do I find my students? That is kind of my journey on how I was able to end up finding students. It's the network that you build, your circle that you build. You know, the circle that you're building is your network. And that network is going to continue to expand. In a funny way, it's like a pyramid scheme. You know, you start with one parent that really likes you. They're going to keep telling other parents about you. And they're going to tell other parents and other parents. Share your videos, share your post, etc. Right? They're all going to end up doing that for you without you having to put your hands in that space, in a matter of speaking. But again, you also need to market yourself. You need to sell yourself. Why should they take your class? If you cannot answer that question, then this is not the field for you. What makes you unique? What makes you stand out? What makes you worth having you as a teacher? What do you bring to the table that other people don't bring? Now, you're going to bring things that I can't bring to the table, and I'm going to bring things that you can't bring to the table. It's to each his own. Everyone's going to have their own unique style on what works for them best. And I've showed my schedule. I've shared it in post and stuff. Am I making a ton of money? No, not at all. I am not making a ton of money at all. I give a different structure. It's something that doesn't help me as much as it might help others, but I try to work with their budgets. And I find families and, you know, they're in a budget crunch. You know, they only can afford so much. They only can do so much. So I find other ways to make it affordable for them. So I make it enough where I can pay my rent, where I can get food and take my taxis, etc. And maybe a little bit of leisure stuff, but not enough to fully support myself to the way I want it to be. So, the purpose of sharing my story is really to open up your eyes, or to open someone's eyes. If they aim to walk this path, this journey will be different from mine. Your path will lead to different opportunities than mine. My opportunities led me in a certain direction, and your path will lead in your own way, or others will lead in their own way. And I'll share one more thing. In June, I offered a tuition that was too good to be true. I ended up getting 20 students now, you know, and I offered something that was a good deal. There are positives and there are negatives, so you learn from them. And every one of those parents gave me that chance to do what I do. You know, I'm not a company, I'm not a school, and they chose me. And I couldn't have been more grateful for that. In summary, there are too many students, but at the end of the day, it's something I learned from. Now this month, it's a bit different. A lot of parents are on their holidays, so I only have a few classes for that tuition situation. I have my other normal classes, but again, that's just how it is. So let's see. I think I've covered everything, so here I am in July 2024. I think February, March, April, May, June, 6 months. I am a little less than 6 months in to this journey, right? And doing another tuition at Spare for students 3 times a week is what I did in June. So I was able to do that with them, as I already mentioned. I try to find a happy medium with these groups. You know, a lot of parents go, I can't afford. I said, well, what can you afford? I can afford X amount. So, all right, here's what I can do with your budget. And the majority of the time, they'll agree. All right. And this is just my advice to you: is find your strategy, find your way, educate yourself, watch videos, take notes, give your time. I want to add one more thing as well. I want to mention that networking with the parents through social media platforms and being a part of their daily life and routine, because that's what I do. Okay, that is my networking road, my networking strategy. Because if you're focusing on their children and what they've grown to do, what they've accomplished, you need to make sure that you do that for them. Because if you do, you're going to get noticed by someone of some sort. Their friend, their neighbor, their uncle, their sister, their brother, a school. You're going to get noticed one way or another. And I want to also say that it's probably going to be a different journey for you. It's going to probably be a different road for you. Your road is going to be a completely different path. So, after sitting here for almost 40 minutes, how do you find students? I mean, the easiest answer I can give you is starting with one golden parent. If that golden parent loves you and likes you, and their kid loves you and likes you, then they tell their friends, and it will be the start of a new journey. You have to make sure that you can sell yourself. You have to know what you are worth. You have to know what you bring to the table. And if you know what you bring to the table, if you know what you're worth, if you know what you're going to do at the end of the day, then you're well on your way, and it's gonna be a wonderful journey for you. And if you're sitting there complaining about, you know, the companies that are hiring for horrible wages, and you're taking their jobs, and independent teaching is not going to be for you, because you have to do everything. Becoming an independent teacher does not just mean teaching in the class, providing an awesome curriculum, and providing a great environment for them. It's everything in between. You know, if you're going to start an auto shop where you're doing paint jobs for their cars, or you're fixing problems with their vehicles, you gotta find a space. You gotta negotiate your rent there. You gotta buy supplies. You gotta hire staff if you have too many customers. You gotta make the customers happy. You gotta set your prices. You gotta make time to market, to network. You're gonna do everything that anybody does for any business, because when you do your own business, you gotta do the whole enchilada. You gotta do the whole 9 yards. You cannot just say, oh, I'm gonna open up a business and then expect opportunity to fall on your lap. You have to put in you have to rub that elbow grease on and put in the work. I think that's everything I can share with you guys. Any questions? I hope you watched the whole video. If you watched the whole video, then awesome. And I'm happy to answer questions if they have not been answered. Otherwise, I wish you guys the best of luck. Take care. Bye-bye.